You know, that moment hits almost every homeowner in Chicago, right? You look up at your roof, maybe after a really rough winter, or you spot a shingle that looks a bit off, and boom, that question hits you. What would it actually cost to replace this thing?
Oh, yeah. It's a big one.
It is, and for good reason. I mean, it's one of the most significant investments you're going to make in your home. It affects everything, its value, how comfortable it is, even how well it holds up to, well, Chicago weather.
Absolutely. It's fundamental.
So today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. How much does a new roof cost right here in Chicago? We've sifted through a whole stack of sources, industry reports, local contractor insights, you name it.
Trying to get the real picture.
Exactly. Uncover the real numbers, but more importantly, kind of demystify the factors behind those numbers. What actually drives the cost?
Yeah, what makes the price tick?
Our mission here is pretty simple.
Mm.
Pull out the key nuggets of info so you can get up to speed fast on Chicago roofing costs, understand what moves the needle on price, and maybe spot a few surprising things along the way. Because look, this isn't just about finding one price tag. It's really about peeling back the layers, all those variables that give you the full picture.
And that's what's so interesting, right? That initial huge range you often see quoted somewhere,
Yeah.
it immediately tells you there's no single answer. Understanding why it can swing from, a few $1,000s to tens of thousands, that's the key to figuring it all out for our city.
Right.
It's less about finding the price and more about understanding what your price is likely to be.
Totally agree. So let's start with that big picture view. Our sources show a new roof in Chicago generally falls somewhere between, say, $6,000 and $40,000.
Okay, that's a common starting point.
And if you average it out, it lands around $23,000. But like you said, that's just the middle. We also saw numbers for a full replacement going way up, like $20,000 to $60,000.
Oh, 60,000.
And then on the low end, maybe $3,000 to $9,000. I mean, that's a massive spread, isn't it? 3 grand up to 60 grand. How do you even start to make sense of that? What makes one roof cost like 20 times more than another?
It really does highlight how tailored these projects are. That $3,000 figure, that might be for a tiny roof, maybe a barrage or a very basic repair. Perhaps just putting shingles over an existing layer with the absolute cheapest asphalt option.
Okay.
Whereas the $60,000 job, you're likely talking premium stuff, slate,
Yeah.
maybe copper flashing, definitely metal, plus a really complex roof design. Tons of labor, maybe even some structural work needed underneath.
So it's not random.
No, not at all. That huge range is directly tied to the specific choices and the conditions of that particular house.
Which leads us right into those key cost factors. Let's break down the variables, starting with the basics. Roof size.
The foundation, literally and figuratively.
Yeah. Everyone agrees costs are usually figured by the square foot. Bigger roof, more materials, more labor time. Simple math, really.
Direct correlation.
Exactly. Like for up 1,000 square foot roof here in Chicago, the range we saw was roughly $3,000 to $20,000. Go up to 1,500 square feet, maybe $4,500 to $30,000. A pretty standard 2,000 square foot roof.
Yeah.
Could be $6,000 to $40,000. And for bigger homes, 2,500 square feet might run $7,500 to $50,000, and a 3,000 square foot roof could stretch from $9,000 all the way to that $60,000 mark we mentioned.
That size to cost link is, well, pretty straightforward.
Hmm.
But the next factor, that's where it gets really interesting, where the cost can really swing wildly.
Materials.
The materials.
Yeah.
This is almost always the single biggest piece of the cost puzzle. The overall range for materials installed in Chicago. It's wide, something like $3.50 up to maybe $25 per square foot.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it's a choice that impacts not just your wallet today, but how long that roof lasts, how much work it needs down the road. Decades of difference, potentially.
It really drives home how crucial that decision is, doesn't it? It's not just about the check you right now, but potentially, yeah, decades of value and, keeping the rain out.
Exactly. Keeping the Chicago weather out.
Right. Let's walk through some common options, starting with maybe the most common one.
Sure. First up, asphalt shingles. These are usually the most budget-friendly. You're looking at around $3.50 to $5.50 per square foot installed. Lifespan, generally 15 to 25 years.
Okay.
They're affordable, they do the job, easy to install, lots of colors. The main downside, especially for us here, they can get pretty beat up by severe weather, high winds, big hailstorms. That can really shorten their life.
Makes sense. And then there's a step up from that, right? Architectural shingles.
Exactly. These are kind of like premium asphalt shingles.
Sure.
A bit thicker, more dimension. Cost is around $4 to $6 per square foot installed.
And they last longer.
Yeah, generally 20 to 30 years, maybe even longer. We saw some sources say 25 to 50 years under ideal conditions. They definitely look nicer than the basic flat ones, more depth. The con is really just that slightly higher upfront cost compared to the standard 3-tab asphalt.
Okay. What about natural materials? Wood.
Right, wood shakes, often cedar shakes, they give you that really nice natural kind of rustic vibe, and they're actually pretty good insulators.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, cost is maybe $6 to $10 per square foot installed. Lifespan for wood shakes is maybe 20, 40 years. But cedar could push that to 30, 50 years.
But there's a catch.
Oh, yeah. The big catch is maintenance. You have to stay on top of them to prevent mold, rot, insects, and they are more of a fire risk than other materials. So higher cost and more upkeep.
Gotcha. Okay, moving up in price and maybe durability. Metal roofing. I see more of this lately.
Me too. It's
Yeah.
a fantastic option for longevity and efficiency. Installed, think $740 per square foot. But the lifespan, 40 to 70 years, sometimes even longer.
Wow, 70 years.
It's incredibly durable, reflects heat, which helps with cooling costs, stands up really well to harsh weather, heavy snow, strong winds, things we definitely get here.
So what are the downsides?
Mainly the upfront cost.
Ah.
It's significantly higher than shingles. And some people worry about noise during rain or hail, though honestly, modern installation with good insulation usually makes that a non-issue.
Right. Okay, what else is out there?
Composite tile is another interesting one. It's versatile because it can be made to look like slate or wood shakes, but without some of the drawbacks. Costs run $7 to $20 per square foot installed.
And lifespan.
Pretty good. 30 to 50 years. You get decent durability, low maintenance, lots of design flexibility. It's kind of a solid middle ground option if you want a specific look. But maybe slate is too heavy or too pricey. Doesn't last quite as long as real slate or metal, though.
And that brings us to the king of longevity, I guess. Slate roofing.
The king, indeed. This stuff can last 75 to 200 years.
200 years.
Seriously. It's incredible. The cost definitely reflects that you're looking at $10 to $25 per square foot installed. Maybe more.
Oof.
Yeah. But it's timeless, elegant, super low maintenance, completely fireproof. The big cons are the very high price, and it's extremely heavy. Your house might need extra structural support just to hold it up, which adds even more to the cost.
But here's a thought I had looking at that 200-year lifespan. It sounds crazy expensive upfront, right? But if you actually think about the annualized cost, spreading it over, say, 100 years or more, compared to replacing asphalt shingles maybe 4 or 5 times in that period, with rising labor costs each time.
That's a really sharp insight. The total cost of ownership.
Exactly. Slate might actually pencil out surprisingly well long-term for some people. It's that buy once, cry once idea, but maybe for your great-grandchildren too.
A very long-term investment strategy for sure. But beyond the material itself, the roof's design complexity is a huge factor in the final price.
You mean like how steep it is?
Yeah, steepness is one part. Steeper roofs need more safety gear, special staging, it's slower work, more dangerous, all drives up labor. But also things like, does it have multiple levels? Lots of dormers, skylights, chimneys. Anything that breaks up the flat surface adds complexity.
Because they have to cut materials precisely, flash around everything.
Exactly. More cuts, more flashing, more detail work means more time and potentially more material waste too.
And it's not just about what's going on the roof, right? What about the old stuff?
Good point. Removing and disposing of the old roof is almost always part of the job, and that costs money. And here's a potential surprise cost. The decking. That's the wood layer under the shingles.
Right, the plywood or boards.
If that's rotten, water damaged, or just old and weak, it has to be replaced because the new roof goes on. You often don't know the full extent of that damage until the old roof is torn off.
Nobody likes those kinds of surprises mid-project.
No kidding. And the overall condition of the existing roof matters too. Is it just worn out? Or are there active leaks, missing shingles everywhere? How many layers of old roofing are already up there?
Yeah.
Sometimes people just roof over the old stuff.
Which isn't always a great idea, I gather.
Usually not. Especially if there are underlying issues.
Right.
And if there's water damage or mold in the attic space or the roof structure itself, that obviously needs fixing first. You can't just cover up problems. That adds another layer of work and cost.
Okay, so materials, size, complexity, condition. What else? The people doing the work,
Yeah.
labor.
Yep, the human element. Labor costs are a huge chunk of the total, often around 60% of the bill.
60%. Wow.
Yeah, and that figure can vary a lot. Depends on the contractor's experience, their crew's efficiency, overhead, insurance costs. and even the time of year you get the work done.
We'll come back to timing. What about permits? Do you need them in Chicago?
Absolutely. You definitely need permits for roofing work here. Any reputable contractor will handle pulling those permits for you. It's not just red tape. It ensures the job meets local building codes, safety standards, basically protects you and your investment.
And Chicago has a special program for that, right?
They do, yeah. An express permit program specifically for re-roofing, which helps speed things up. But the permit cost still gets factored into your overall price.
Okay. Now here's something interesting from the source's geographic location within the Chicago area matters. Like Evanston might be pricier than New Lenox.
It can be, yeah. It seems counterintuitive sometimes, but think about local economic factors. Things like the average cost of living for the workers, how far materials have to be transported, maybe even local regulations, or the density of competition in that specific suburb.
So the takeaway is...
Get multiple quotes. Even if you live in a slightly pricier area, you might find contractors based elsewhere who serve your area, or competition might just be different block by block. Don't assume the first quote reflects the only possible price for your neighborhood. It's a subtle but potentially impactful variable.
That's a great tip. Okay, let's talk timing. You mentioned the time of year affects cost.
It definitely can.
Yeah.
Basic supply and demand. We found that late fall into early winter is often the most cost-effective time.
Really? When it's cold?
Yeah, because demand drops off. Roofers are less busy, so they might offer more competitive pricing to keep their crews working. Late spring through summer, that's peak roofing season. Weather's good. Everyone wants their roof done now, so prices tend to be higher.
Makes sense. Busy season premiums.
Exactly. So if you have some flexibility, scheduling for the shoulder season or even early winter could save you some money.
Good to know. And finally, what about warranties and insurance?
Right. Choosing, say, an enhanced manufacturer warranty or having certain types of homeowners insurance might add a bit to the upfront cost, maybe indirectly to a contractor choice. But that extra protection can offer huge long-term value and peace of mind, especially with our unpredictable weather patterns.
And before any of this happens, get an inspection, right?
Crucial. A professional inspection nails down the current condition, identifies any hidden issues like that bad decking we talked about, and really defines the scope of work needed. Lots of companies now offer free drone inspections too, which are quick, safe, and give you a really clear visual assessment.
Okay, we've really broken down the cost factors, but a roof isn't just about the initial bill, is it? It's a long-term thing.
Exactly. It's an investment in your home's future.
So let's shift focus a bit beyond just the price tag. Think longevity, efficiency. We touched on lifespans, but maybe recap the typical ranges.
Sure. So asphalt shingles, generally 15 to 30 years. Metal, much longer, 40 to 70 years. Tile and slate, the real long haulers, 50 up to potentially 200 years. And wood shakes or shingles, somewhere in the 20 to 40-year range.
And for Illinois overall, the general guideline is most roofs last somewhere between 20 and 50 years before needing replacement.
That sounds about right. It's a significant portion of your home's life cycle.
So if you're making this investment, you want it to perform well for all those years. How do ventilation and insulation play into that?
Hugely important, often overlooked, but critical. Proper ventilation, meaning good airflow through your attic space, does a few key things. It helps regulate the attic temperature, keeps it cooler in summer, reducing strain on your AC.
Okay.
And in winter, it helps prevent moisture buildup and keeps the underside of the roof deck dry, which stops mold and rot. It also helps prevent those dreaded ice dams.
Ah, ice dams, the bane of Chicago homeowners.
Right. Good ventilation is key to preventing them, and good insulation works right alongside it. Effective insulation slows down heat transfer. So in winter, less heat escapes from your living space into the attic. This keeps your house warmer, lowers heating bills, and also helps prevent ice dams because the roof surface stays colder, so snow doesn't melt and refreeze at the edges.
And in summer, it keeps the heat out.
Exactly. Keeps the cool air inside, reduces air conditioning load, saves energy again. So optimizing ventilation and insulation. It doesn't just make your house more comfortable and save money on energy bills.
It protects the roof structure itself.
Precisely. It preserves the integrity of your whole roofing system, making that big investment last longer and work harder for you year after year.
Now, another common dilemma. Repair or replace. When do you patch it up versus bite the bullet for a whole new roof?
Yeah, and there's actually a specific rule here in Chicago that's surprising to many.
Oh, what's that?
The city limits roof repair work to only 25% of the total existing roof surface area.
Only 25%.
Yep. If the necessary repairs cover more than a quarter of your roof, you're generally required to do a full roof recover, if applicable, or a complete replacement.
Wow, okay. That's a really important piece of info. So a few missing shingles, a small leak, maybe repair is okay.
Right. Minor localized issues, a repair might be fine, assuming you're under that 25% threshold.
But if the roof is getting old anyway, or the damage is more widespread.
Or if you've already had multiple repairs trying to chase leaks,
Yeah.
then exceeding that 25% rule becomes very likely, and a full replacement is often the only real option and, frankly, the smarter long-term choice.
Because it addresses everything at once.
Exactly. Addresses underlying problems, improves energy efficiency with modern materials and techniques, boosts your home's value and curb appeal. When you're facing major issues or that 25% rule kicks in, replacement is usually the way to go for safety and long-term economics.
And speaking of safety and economics, what about DIY? Tempting to save on that big labor cost, right?
It's tempting, I get it. But the consensus from professionals is pretty clear. Roofing is generally not a good DIY project for most homeowners.
Why not?
Several reasons. One, it's dangerous work, up high on a sloped surface. Falls are a serious risk. Two, it requires specialized knowledge, tools, and techniques. Mistakes are easy to make.
And mistakes can be costly.
Very costly. Improper installation can lead to leaks, void material warranties, shorten the roof's lifespan. You might end up spending more in the long run fixing the DIY job than you would have hiring pros in the first place.
Plus, handling materials disposal, it's a big job.
It really is. Professionals have the experience, the safety gear, the efficiency. They ensure it's done right, meets code, and that your warranty is valid. Usually worth the investment for peace of mind alone.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, what does this deep dive really mean for you, the listener, thinking about a new roof in Chicago? It feels like the big takeaway is that it's way more than just a single price.
Definitely. It's about understanding all those moving parts we talked about.
Right. It's about carefully weighing the material options, not just cost, but lifespan and maintenance. Understanding how the size and the complexity of your specific roof impacts labor.
Thinking about the condition of what's already up there.
Yeah, and even timing your project strategically if you can. It's like a puzzle, really, with lots of pieces.
But hopefully a puzzle that feels a bit more solvable now.
I think so. We've navigated this pretty complex landscape from those wide average cost ranges, what was it, $6K to $40K, average around $23K, to the nitty-gritty details of shingle types versus metal versus slate. We've looked at size, labor, permits, even Chicago's specific 25% repair rule.
Hopefully you feel more empowered now.
Yeah, you should have a much better handle on the factors driving those costs, feel more confident asking contractors the right questions, and be able to evaluate those quotes more effectively.
So as you move forward, maybe chew on this final thought. Beyond just the dollars and cents on the estimate sheet, what are those often overlooked benefits or potential hidden costs?
Like what?
Well, think about the long-term energy savings from better insulation, or how a new, properly installed roof might impact your homeowner's insurance rates, or maybe just the sheer peace of mind knowing your home is protected, especially during one of our wild Chicago storms.
Right, those less tangible things.
Exactly. What factors, beyond the initial price, truly define the total value and performance of that new roof for your specific situation in this specific climate? Something to mull over as you plan your next steps.